Greetings, initiates. I'm Jedediah Thomas, the Mind Master. Today, I wanted to talk about the inner child and mommy issues and daddy issues. Now, be sure to like and subscribe for more content on the mind, the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, traumas, limiting beliefs, and motivation, and everything around that. So, first off, let's talk about the inner child. Now, if you're in the mindset industry, you've probably come across people who kind of do like inner child work, and they have all these theories about how all of our problems stem back to our childhood, and basically we are not loved appropriately as children, and that develops all of these issues, and they kind of spiral out of control and take over our entire life. And basically, they think just by fixing your inner child, you'll be able to completely undo that and basically heal. So, there's a couple of issues with that. So, number one, the first issue is that your mind doesn't make a distinction with how old you are, right? So if you get traumatized or if you get a limiting belief, it doesn't matter if it happened today or yesterday or 5 years ago or 10 years ago or when you were very young as a child, right? So basically, at any point in your life, you can develop new limiting beliefs, new traumas, have new issues come up that don't actually stem from childhood. So basically, our trauma response is a normal survival mechanism. So if you walk out of your building and a piano falls on your head, you'll probably be traumatized. Now, if you're working with someone who only does inner child work, they'll be like, well, when did that problem start? And you'll be like, well, when a piano got dropped on my head last week. And they'll be like, oh, well, no, like when did it really start? And you'll be like, when a piano fell on my head. And they'll be like, no, 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 let's go back to childhood. And it's like, it's pointless because you never got a piano dropped on your head as a child, right? And it's the same thing with limiting beliefs, right? If you wake up tomorrow and decide that gravity isn't real, right? And you can now fly, it's a pretty crazy belief, but it can happen. And then you work with like an inner child worker, they'll be like, no, 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 when did this start? You'll be like, okay, like this is when it started, right? And they won't understand that the root of the problem is something other than childhood, right? So that's one of the issues with it. And then the other issue with it is that healing your inner child doesn't really resolve the problems, because a lot of the inner child work that's done is about making your inner child feel loved, saving it from these bad situations, right? Kind of like treating it as a child and removing it to a new location, or to where you are now or whatever, or to your parents' house. And it doesn't work, because the issue is not that your inner child needs to be rescued, because to the mind, there is no such thing as an inner child. It's just you, right? It's it doesn't actually work because the traumas are still there, right? Those are actually the root issue, is the traumas and limiting beliefs that have happened to you as a child. And so what is happening is that your brain still believes that the trauma happened, which means you're still traumatized. And then it believes that after the trauma happened, you were rescued from that situation, which means you still have the trauma, and all you've done is created a distance between yourself and the event psychologically, right? So there are several methodologies that do stuff like that, namely like RTT and RRT. And there are other ones as well that do like inner child work, and it always involves rescuing the inner child from these situations. And I've worked on people that have had those methodologies done, and it doesn't actually fix the problem, right? It's not until I go in and actually fix the problem that the problem is fixed, because all you're doing is creating this psychological distance. So those are kind of the two issues with inner child work, is that one, they think that all of your problems stem from childhood, and they don't. And then the second issue is that even if they're right about a problem stemming from childhood, their methodology doesn't actually fix the problem, because the problem is not due to you being a child, it's due to you being traumatized or adopting limiting beliefs. And to add another layer on top of that, the whole reason why this inner child concept got created in the first place is because for the first few years of our life, either from 0 to 4 years or 0 to 7 years, depending on who you ask, we're basically in a hypnotic or semi-hypnotic state the entire time. Basically, everything that we see, we record, and everything that we hear, smell, taste, touch, it basically goes right to our subconscious without that conscious gatekeeper to prevent bad information from slipping in there. What that does is make us more susceptible to bad programming in the form of limiting beliefs and traumas, because we can't rationalize away what actually happened to us. But like I said, there is no distinction in the mind between a trauma when you were 1 year old and a trauma that happened yesterday. It's just trauma. And there's no objective difference between a limiting belief that formed when you were 1 year old and a limiting belief that you formed yesterday. That's just what it is. It's a trauma or limiting belief. Doesn't matter what the circumstances were that caused it. Doesn't matter how old you are. That's the fundamental issue that underlies all of that. And what they're doing is they're mistaking correlation with causation, and they're thinking that all of your problems stem from this period, when that's just a period in your life where you can have more problems more easily, but that's really all it means. Okay, so that is inner child. And then you have this other thing, and I don't actually really know that much about modern psychology. Like, I haven't studied it at all, but I have watched a lot of movies. And in those movies, whenever you see like a shrink or a therapist or a psychologist or whatever, they're always talking about, mommy issues and daddy issues. And they're like, okay, all of your problems stem from how you saw your parents, your relationship with your mother, your relationship with your father. And so maybe this is just a trope, I don't know. But if it is in psychology, which I haven't studied, it's a load of manure, basically. And for the same reasons that I was talking about for the inner child. So what this means is that a trauma is a trauma, and a limiting belief is a limiting belief, regardless of whether it came from your mom, regardless of whether it came from your dad, could have come from a sibling, a friend, a teacher, a neighbor, a religious person, authority, a government person, a policeman, a fireman. Like, it could have come from anywhere. And basically anyone who thinks that all of your problems stem from your mom or your dad is absolutely off their rocker and has no clue how the mind works, because they're thinking that like that you're isolated and you live in like this box completely cut off from the outside world and have no social interactions with anybody except for your parents, right? So you've never watched a TV show, you've never been outside your house, you've never owned a pet, you've never had a sibling, right? You have like zero knowledge of the existence of humanity except for your mom or your dad. Okay, in that case, you probably have mommy issues, you probably have daddy issues. But there is no difference between traumas or limiting beliefs that come from either of those sources versus any other source, right? It's just that statistically speaking, we are more likely to receive limiting beliefs and traumas from them. And we are in a period of our life where we are more susceptible to taking on limiting beliefs and traumas. And so when you add those two together, yes, there is a very good chance that you have some issues coming from your mom, you have some issues coming from your dad, but that's not all of your problem, right? And it could be 90% of your problem, it could be 5% of your problem, depending on how you were raised, who you were around, what other, stimuli you had access to or exposure to, right? Your issues could have come from anywhere. And assuming that they either come from your mom or your dad or your inner child is an egregious error. And whoever says that really has no clue how the mind works. So if you see anyone saying that all of your problems are from inner child, or all of your problems are mommy issues, or all of your problems are daddy issues. It's absolutely not accurate. And basically, when you have a broken model, all of the theory and all of the methodology that's built on that model is not going to work, right? And so if you have a wrong idea about where your problems are coming from, you're not actually going to be able to fix them. So what I do, in contrast to that, is I know that everything comes down to limiting beliefs or traumas, and your mind makes absolutely no distinction between what are the circumstances of those, and I just go in and fix the problems. Doesn't matter where it came from, doesn't matter when it came from, doesn't matter how it came from, right? It's all fixable, and you don't have to worry about all of the psychobabble. You don't have to worry about all of the mindset babble. Basically, those two industries, plus psychiatry, plus any other mental industry, came about because nobody has a blessed clue how the mind actually works. And I'm going to fix that because I have figured it out, and science will catch up to me one day, I'm sure. But in the meantime, I will be healing people, I will be helping people, and I will be setting the record straight in terms of education about what the mind is and how it actually truly works. So, if you want to follow along, like I said, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment in the comment section if you have specific areas or questions or content that you want me to make about the mind. And then just check me out on Facebook. That's in the description as well. And eventually, I'll be putting together a movement of the initiates of the mysteries of the mind. So, still working on the admin side of that, but look forward to that coming soon. And I'll see you on the channel. Thanks. Bye.